The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar we're having today on Read and Write for higher ed institutions. My name is Paul Brown. I am a vice president here at TextHelp. TextHelp is the company that produces and creates Read and Write, as well as some other tools, Equatio, SnapVerter, WriteQ, Fluency Tutor. Before we get started today, just want to make sure you are comfortable with the interface there for GoToWebinar. If the screen there, the dialog screen is in your way, you can just choose this little orange arrow button and it should shift over to the side. Everyone's going to be muted today. However, if you have questions, there's a place where you can put some questions in there. I will do my best to keep on top of those as we're going through. And if for some reason you can't hear that well, you can always choose the phone call option up here if it's not coming through that well or that great on your computer. But if it is, great, and if it's not, you can switch to the phone call there. I want to say a special shout out today. I see Robert Spangler from my alma mater, the University of Dayton, is there, so go Flyers. Thanks for coming, Robert. A lot of us here today. The reason I think a lot of us are here is that a lot of you were on the Equatio webinar I did a couple weeks ago with Susan Kelmer from the University of Colorado in Boulder. And in doing that, some things came up previously when she and I met at Accessing Higher Ground back in November. And so if you saw that webinar, thanks for joining us. If you wanted to see a recording of that webinar, you can do it here at text.help/HEMath, and the HEMath is all in caps there. One thing that I mentioned then on that webinar is that we did hear some folks asking us, in addition to the math conversion, what about text conversion? And a lot of folks said, I need to look at Read&Write Gold again, which I kind of made the point that people that are calling it Read&Write Gold probably haven't seen the program in 4 years or so, because we haven't called it that in about 4 years. There are many different iterations now, so we've kind of called it just Read&Write for Windows, Read&Write for Mac, that sort of thing. So before I go into showing Read&Write, to give you an idea of what Read&Write is, Read&Write is specifically a literacy software. So the foundation of Read&Write was really around people who are dyslexic and have learning disabilities. It has about 20 different assistive technology tools in one. We've got over 18 million people using different iterations of Read&Write, which is fantastic. It supports reading, writing, research, and in some neat ways, testing that we'll take a look at today. And as I mentioned before, it covers many platforms. So here you'll see listed, the top 3 are really the ones that we're going to look at today, more the Windows and the Google Chrome. I'm not on a Mac, so I won't be able to show you what's happening on a Mac, but a lot of the things I do in Windows look the exact same in our Mac version that's installed on Macs. The iPad, Android, and Microsoft Edge iterations of this. iPad is really meant for people that are typing into a document like a Google Doc possibly, or something else. We've basically put text-to-speech into a keyboard on an iPad. However, I think a lot of people are hoping that there's like a PDF reader with it. There's not, and for that we always say, there's some good ones that are already out there. I think Claro's got a good one. I think that there's Dream Reader, I believe that's the name of it. Android, we developed this a few years ago. Those devices really aren't used that often, but it's a similar thing. It's a keyboard. And then Microsoft Edge, what we'll see today for the Google version works very similarly in Edge, but as many of you know, Microsoft is going to be doing away with Edge, I believe, later on this year. So the ones we're going to see most and that are used most are the top 3 here today. First thing to note is that Read&Write is an annual subscription. It includes all these platforms. So if you're a single user, you can use it on any of these platforms. If you're a university or a college, you can put it across all of your Windows machines, students' personal Windows machines, Mac machines if they have those. And then what more colleges are doing now, those that have gone Google, are deploying the Google version out to all of the accounts in the university, which is really easy and really nice. And these top three here in particular are under continual development. So we continue to add things to them. And I'll give you an idea of how we differentiate these three different iterations. So first, on the left-hand side here, for Windows and for Mac, as I mentioned, they're both under continual development. They provide PDF access. They also provide access in lockdown browser situations. For example, if you're maybe a community college who uses something like AccuPlacer, oftentimes it can sit on top of that and add accessibility there. For students that have some deeper needs, we can do that as well. There are deeper tools on the Windows and Mac than there are in the Google Chrome version. Almost all the features on these platforms, Windows and Mac, do not require the internet. And you really don't have to scan, but there is an ABBY scanner just in case if you need to scan something so that you have a fully accessible document, you can do that as well. Over here on the Google Chrome side, if you are a Google campus, you really need to look at this, and that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to take about 10 minutes or so just to go into the Google Chrome version to show you all the tools that are available there, unique to that browser environment that's different from installing something on a Mac or a PC. We've built assistive technology really into the entire Google suite, in the docs, into PDFs, into web pages. And what's nice there is we actually do have an EPUB reader that I will be able to show you that's included in that Google Chrome version. And it is really simple to install this. Instead of pushing out a software to machines, you're really pushing out an extension to your Google Chrome, basically all the student and faculty accounts. So it's a very, very simple, quick, easy way to push that software out. A couple things to note about the research in the toolbar, just to give you an idea. Some people look at these tools as productivity tools, but we've been doing this for a long time here at TextHelp. Read and Write is over 20 years old. Some of the research that backs some of the things we do, for instance, comprehension really skyrockets when you're using text-to-speech with the dual highlighting that we're going to show today. Reading speed can be effective. The duration of reading, in other words, how long you're able to sit and read. Writing efficiency is really, really great with this program. We'll take a look at some of the great writing tools in this as well. How do we make these advances for writing and for reading and comprehension? We combine tools like text-to-speech, dictation, prediction, writing tools, dictionaries, editing tools, study skills tools, and organizational tools, and we put them all into one toolbar. Over the years, people have come to call us kind of the Swiss Army knife of tools because there's many different tools that a student might need. We put them all in one place, and we kind of, it's very similar to maybe somebody going out into the woods or a Boy Scout going out into the woods with a pocket knife. You don't really know what you're going to need at any given time, but you'd prefer they be all in one place. So you come across something you need, you pull it out, use a tool that you need to right there. And in general, as I said, the tools generally help students with reading, writing, research, and testing. I do have, at the end of this, I'm going to answer some of the questions that you were all kind enough to ask ahead of time. One of them was, which departments, which areas of the university is Read and Write helpful with? And so what I've put here basically is when we've gone in and talked to different campuses, I'd say that the best meetings we have are when we go in and there's representatives from as many of these departments as possible. So ESL, athletics for sure. North Dakota State University was one of the first ones that we found out that actually included Read and Write in their freshman 101 courses. Talk more about that in a little bit. Distance learning, veterans, faculty, because there are folks on faculty that may have some learning disabilities or could use the tools in Read and Write. Struggling writers, so those writing departments, centers that are usually somewhere close to like the library, placement testing, and then retention. So specifically what we're going to look at first today is Read and Write for Windows. Some of the top uses for Read and Write for Windows are reading and accessing PDFs. As I mentioned before, lockdown browser testing like AccuPlacer. It doesn't always work for all of the lockdown browsers, but our support staff at support.texthelp.com can help you out if you've got a particular test that you want to use Read and Write with. We'll give it our best shot. Oftentimes we can do it, but we can't do it everywhere, unfortunately. You don't have to have scanning. In other words, if you got a PDF, you can just start reading it, or if there's something a professor is sharing through an LMS, they can use that right away and be able to access it. But if you need it, we do have the scanning abilities on the toolbar. The testing center, so to have restrictions and control, we're going to look at that today as well, particularly with the Windows version in terms of what schools are using and how to restrict the access from certain tools in certain places. We'll talk more about the LMS access. And then, as I mentioned, when you look at colleges, they're trying to find ways to give students support so that they don't leave. Read&Write has been really, really popular for that. I do want to note that there are two different Windows versions. The older one, which is 11.5, is the static one. In other words, anything that we have ever created for Read&Write ended up on 11.5. If we had time travel available, it would be on 11.5. There are over 600 different options. So if you have a specific need for a specific student, 11.5, there's a better chance it's going to be there than on any other version, whether it be Mac, Google, or even version 12 that I'm going to show you. But this is the one that's great for labs or, as I said, deeper student needs. Version 12, which is the first one we're going to look at, that is under continual development. We actually just released some things the other day with it, but it is more simplified because it is meant for more high incidence use. There are less options for it, but it is easier to navigate. And as you'll see today, I do have both 11.5 and 12 installed on the same computer here. So let's go ahead and take a look. So first, in order to use Read&Write, first of all, you can go to our website, texthelp.com, look at our products, and when you find Read&Write, you can click on the Try Now, and then it'll basically say those are those 6 different platforms. You can choose the one you're on. You would choose Windows in this case. It would install it there, and then you're good to go. So one of the first things that people want to do, as I mentioned, is to access PDFs. And to do that, let me just go ahead. I'm going to close out of this. I'm going to open up. You'll see down here I've got 2 different versions of Read&Write. This one says Read&Write 11, which is actually 11.5. And the one that says just Read&Write is actually version 12. That's the newer one. So when I click on that Read&Write, it's going to load this up. And as I'm waiting for this, a couple questions have come in. One, is it possible to listen to this webinar on another day? Someone had to leave. Yes, I'm going to record this for everybody and send it out to everyone. It'll take me a day though. I'm going to have it closed captioned first. Is this compatible with Moodle? One of the things people have used it for is to access different LMSs. Does it work inside of it? No, but if you're looking to have the text read aloud, which is the most popular thing people use Read&Write for, generally we can do it. And in doing that, basically the easiest way is a screenshot reader. I'll just show you quickly what this is. Screenshot reader is on every iteration of Read&Write, or most of them, I should say, the ones we're looking at today. And when you choose it, it's going to give me 2 crosshairs, and then whatever text I pull a box around, it's going to do a quick scan with Abby and then read it. So in this case, I'll just read the Text Help logo on my desktop, and then it's going to scan that and then read that to me.
Text Help.
Now, when you've got Read&Write 12 on my desktop here, it doesn't really matter what platform you're in, what LMS you're in, you're going to be able to use that screenshot reader to read pretty much all of them if it's just text. So here's the toolbar. To give you an idea, this is it. There's no more tools than the ones that are shown up here. So as I said, there's about 20 different tools here. On the right-hand side is where the settings are. So the simple settings here, speak as I type. So every time I type a letter or a word or put punctuation, it's going to read that. Screen reading, so it's just going to read everything on the screen that I hover over. Continuous reading, it'll go to the end of a document. And then read the web, basically whatever HTML I hover over, it's going to read that. If I want, I can have a pop-up dictionary. And then there are some deeper settings here. So if I click on Show More Settings, it's going to bring this up, and I can go to any of these different tools and change the settings for them. I can also look through here, so if I wanted to necessarily change the voice, I can just put it in here, and then it's going to give me my voice options. And there's a few here. We have a lot more to download if you'd like at our Essentials site. The speed, the pitch, that sort of thing are all here. So I can customize it, and this basically lives on this machine. So whenever I log back in here, it remembers my settings here. So as I mentioned, the first thing we're going to look at is PDFs. If I want to use Read&Write to access a PDF, I simply click on the PDF icon here, and I choose the PDF that's on my computer. And then basically it opens here in our viewer. So our viewer here, you can zoom in and out just like most PDF viewers here. I've got my text is right here, and it's automatically set that as soon as I click on something here, it's going to start reading it, because that click and speak by default is automatically turned on when you open up a PDF with our version 12 viewer. So now when I click here where it says maintaining, it's going to start reading with that dual color highlighting. Or it should have. There it goes.
Body temperature by absorbing and distributing heat throughout the body into the...
Now what happens here is you still can use the toolbar up top to pause that, in which case I've done that. I can stop it. I can turn off that continuous reading here, or that click to speak, and now I can use the other tools of the toolbar here. So if I didn't know what a word was, I can highlight that and use, for example, our picture dictionary. So that'll bring up basically an image of that word. So then anywhere else that I go, if I don't know what a word is, I can click on that, and it's going to update that in the dictionary here in the picture dictionary. There is also a talking dictionary. So here I've got surface, and if I want, I can click on that, and it'll read that out loud if I'd like.
1. The outer or top layer. She wiped the surface of the table.
So talking dictionary, picture dictionary. I will say picture dictionary is really, really helpful for ESL and international students. We've heard before where those students come over and they get some English course for the first year, but then after that, there's really no help. So this is a very popular way for those students to have that support right there, particularly that picture dictionary. Some of the other tools here, there is a screen masking. So if I'm using screen masking here, I can click on this, and basically it's going to tint my screen. So for example, if a student has scotopic sensitivity syndrome, or where the background is really glaring if it's white, they can calm that down here. And there's a little settings tab that comes up down here. So if I want to change the settings, I can do that by clicking on this little wheel here. And it's going to give me the different ways. I can change the page color. I can do an underline cursor if I want. So now it's just kind of a straight edge. I can do a tint typing line. So now anywhere that I type, which I can't do on a PDF here, I could actually have that highlighted. And then I can tint the whole screen. Further down here, you can see I've got some different colors I can choose from. So if I wanted pink, I can do that. If I want to change the background, the opacity, I can do that. The reading ruler, which is that little bar that came up, I can put that on if I'd like. Sorry, so this is basically what it is. It's everything except where my cursor is that's going to be tinted. So you can see that. And then I can actually change the color of this ruler. And the ruler opacity and the height, those sorts of things. So I can change all that here. This is a pretty popular option when people are setting up testing labs. They will usually put screen masking on there just in case a student needs to have that. There's really no advantage that they're giving any student. It just helps those that need that tool. Some other tools here, you'll see that there are highlighters, and these highlighters are prevalent throughout all three of the platforms we're going to see today, really. Couple things you can do. Let's say in this PDF, I don't know what a word is. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to highlight that word. So in this case, I'll do surface and encourage, and I'm just going to do some random ones here, excessive. And it doesn't matter what color you use for what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to use this vocabulary tool. So I've highlighted some words I'm not sure about, and when I click on vocabulary list, what it's going to do is it's going to open up in a Word doc. It's going to open up and show me all three of those words, give me a definition, and then a visual from our picture dictionary in there, which is really nice. So I've just very easily made basically a study guide for myself, and it saves it as a Microsoft Word doc here, which is just great. Very, very popular tool for students in this PDF area. Another thing I can use these highlighters for is, let's say I'm taking some notes, which is a very popular thing with PDFs. And for me, yellow is going to have something to do with regulation. Blue is going to have something to do with another topic, whatever these categories are going to be. There's some more yellow. Here's some more blue, and anything here that has to do with nutrients is going to be green. Here's something else that's yellow. The nice thing here, when I'm done highlighting my document by color, I choose the Collect Highlights button. What Collect Highlights is going to do is it is going to also open up a Microsoft Word document, but now it's going to pull all those highlights and organize them by color, which is super helpful for those students that they have some longer PDFs and they need to organize the information. We've done it here for them by color, and then at the bottom we've given an idea of where that came from. So if they need to build a bibliography, they have some of the information there. So again, these highlighters right inside of the PDF, I can use them to create that vocabulary list, or I can pull all of these highlights together, which is such a great organizational tool. I'm going to stop now and see if there's any questions when it comes to the PDF reading here. Doesn't look like it here, so essentially this is it. If the PDF is accessible, in this case I can grab the text, then we're good to go. However, in a situation where, let's say I want to open up a PDF and I open one up and it is an image like this. It's opened up with our PDF reader, but I cannot grab the text or the text. This obviously presents a problem. There's two things I can do right now. I can use that screenshot reader. So if you recall, I showed you this. I click on the screenshot reader and I go down here, and this, unfortunately, is very typical of some examples of text or worksheets, whatever else that professors will put into the LMSs and share with students. It's got underlines, it's got things on the margins, it's just crazy. However, I pull the box around here and it does a pretty darn good job of scanning this with Abby and then reading this out loud.
Discussions of this question in the literature have equated a negative answer with the belief that the standard categories of rights, interests, and...
So it read that perfectly, despite the fact that it's not really clear and it's got all the underlines there. So it does a really nice job. If I just need to have some text on the fly, I can do that. However, let's say that I want to make this more accessible, this entire document. Well, here's what I can do. I'm going to close this out, and there is a scanning tool on here. And I don't think a lot of people are aware of this, but it's really, really simple to use. So if I have a document, in this case, it's from a file. I'm going to select a file. I'm going to do the same thing. I'll go to, I'll just go to my desktop documents here. I'll grab that same file, my environment image. And now it's saying, do you want to make a PDF or a Word doc? If I do a Word doc, it is going to take that PDF and it's going to extract all the text that it finds and put it into a Word document. So then it is accessible, which is really, really great for some students. If you're converting text for them, it's really, really great. If I just want to do a PDF here so that it's image, so it's not image, but basically it's accessible, I can do that. I'm going to choose PDF here and I'm going to choose scan. And it's going to say, okay, well, just tell us what you want to name it. So I'm going to call it my higher ed webinar sample, put it on my desktop. When I choose save here, now basically it's going to use the Abby scanning tool that we have embedded in the software to run it through that, and it's scanning, in this case, 11 pages. So it takes a few moments to do this, but once it's done, it'll save that on my desktop. It will open it up in our PDF viewer, and as I mentioned before, it likely will have that click to speak automatically turned on by default. The nice thing about this is once you teach professors how to do this, when they're creating their documents, they can make sure before they share it out that it is accessible. Also, I think somebody earlier, I think yesterday, added a question, how can we help teach staff and faculty to make documents accessible? This is one way. Another way is the scanners that they may be using or the large printers that they may be using in their offices. Oftentimes, when those are put in place, the default is not to have OCR because it goes a little faster. But if they switch it to OCR by default on that printer or copier, everything that they lay down to turn into a PDF is going to be made an accessible PDF, which is what we have here. So basically, you see here, it's already turned it on, and now we can go through here, and I'll read that same part.
I address the question of whether there must be a distinctively Environmental ethic discussions of this question in the literature have equated a negative answer with the belief that the standard categories.
So I'm pausing it there. You can see it does a pretty good job of scanning that. Again, this is kind of a cruddy document that we're dealing with. If it was a regular document where, it's just a scanned version of a page, it does really, really nicely, and we'll see some of those in a moment. But here, basically, I was able to scan that document, in this case, into a PDF, which is going to keep all the formatting. If I opted, when I did this, to scan it to a Word doc, it would basically create the Word doc, pull those words out, but there's a chance you're going to lose some of the formatting there, but at least you'll have that text. If I was connected to a scanner, I could do that here basically, or if my iPhone was connected, I could do that as well. So what Adele is asking, if there's an image along with the text, we're not going to do anything with that necessarily. That's going to be something that you'd have to use another program like Adobe or something to go in there and put the alt text in there. This is more kind of a simpler solution. And again, we assume, as I said, with Read and Write, particularly on the desktop here, that this person has sight, so it's not necessarily a visual issue that we're dealing with there. This is really, again, more creative for somebody that can see or doesn't have a visual impairment necessarily. Can I convert a textbook to audio? So there is an audio book on here. Let me just go ahead and open this up. If I've got, let me just bring this back up. So here is a version of that textbook before. If I did want to pull this into an MP3, I can do that. So let's say I want to pull this chapter into an MP3. I can do that here. I highlight the text and then I choose the audio maker. So what the audio maker does basically is it takes that text, it's going to convert it into audio, and then I can choose where I'm going to save that. I can also change the name here if I want, and then when I choose create MP3, it'll do that. There is a limit. You can't do an entire book, but I believe most cases you can do about a chapter at a time. That's about the limit to do that. You'll see that this audio creator is also on version 11, which we'll look at. It's also on our Mac program. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, at this point, I've shown you most of the tools here. Actually, let me show you just one more. Something recently that we added, it's similar to a tool like Grammarly. It is called Check It, and it's over here. And when I choose Check It, in this case, I'm in a Word document, it's going to identify a whole bunch of things, spelling errors, grammatical errors. In this case down here, we can see that there's an open quote without the closed quote there. So the nice thing here is not only will it find these things, but you can also use, let's say, this picture dictionary when I'm going through here. So in this case, I've got oh dear here, and I need to figure out which deer I want. So when I choose this DEAR, it reads it aloud for me, and it also gives me this deer, DEAR. You can see in the visual over there is when you're writing a letter, and that's what I wanted. So I can either ignore it or I can choose that here. Really great tool there. Then I come over here, and where there's that open quote, it'll tell me that there's basically, that there's not an open quote, or I should say a closed quote that goes with it. So it's a really handy tool. What a lot of schools like about this is it is COPPA compliant. Grammarly is not. So with data security, in fact, our company just yesterday had to announce that we had to pull Grammarly out of our ecosystem, our Google ecosystem, because it does not comply with our data privacy policies as a company. Check it does, which is great. So you've got that tool up there as well. When we're looking at the writing process, a couple tools here. One is the prediction. So as students are typing along, in this case in a Word document, it's going to help me with where I'm going. So maybe I want to put today I walked. So it's going to read these suggestions. Nice thing here also is that if I have my picture dictionary up, it's going to give me a visual for what that word is. Again, this is really helpful for those ESL students. When they're writing in English, they can figure out which word they want. It reads it aloud to me, it gives me a visual, and I can pop it in, and then it's going to give me the most likely next word based upon what I've already written in that sentence. So that's a really helpful tool with writing. Another one that's great is the dictation. I will say that we basically, in the dictation tool, we tie to Microsoft's embedded speech-to-text tool. So this probably isn't going to be too shocking to anyone, when it comes up. You can choose to, if you want, to train it and do all those things. There is that time that takes there, but basically we do tie to Microsoft's there. So when it comes up, I am using Microsoft's dictation tool. I am using Microsoft's dictation tool. So if you've seen that before, probably not a big shock. Works really well there in this document. Another neat tool that a lot of students use for feedback is the voice note. And that's, I think, the last one on here. So the voice note basically allows me to record my voice and then leave it as a file, an MP3, right here in the document. I'm leaving my feedback. This is how I came to my answer. It's a big, complex math problem. I'm going to leave it here with my voice. I can listen to it. I can save it if I want, but then I can insert it also in the document. So now anybody that comes across here, they can listen to my answer here. Great way for students that are challenged with writing to put their answer there and just give that verbal feedback, which is great. So the only other thing I think that I haven't mentioned here is the translator tool. So when I choose the translator, it's basically going to use Google Translate. It's just going to pull that information that I had highlighted, and in this case, it is set to Spanish, and then I can listen to that read aloud if I'd like.
Estoy usando la herramienta de dictado de Microsoft tanto por ciento.
Nice thing here is that we use one of our Spanish voices to read that out loud there, which is great. So I'm going to close out of version 12 here, and I'm going to show you version 11. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to check over here on my other screen just to see if, okay, there's some questions here. Some of them actually I'm going to answer at the end as well. So we'll look at those then. As I mentioned, here's version 12. Here's version 11.5. It just says 11. So when I click on that, I'm going to open that up, and you're going to see, I'm going to show you how it's a little bit deeper in some ways in terms of the tools than version 12 is. So there it is. I'm going to pull it up here. You can see it's got a spell check. It does not have that check it tool on it because, again, this is 11.5. We've stopped developing for this a couple years ago. Anything new that we develop is on version 12. However, what do you need to know about version 11 here? Well, each one of the tools has a drop-down right there. And remember I said that there are 600 or so different options. Well, basically, this is where you can start seeing those options. Spelling options here. When I choose this, it's going to open up an options area where I can do a lot of different things with spelling. I can change the setting there for the spelling. You also probably noticed that at the bottom here, there was a video tour. So if I want to learn how to use this specific tool, I can just click on the video tour, and it's going to, in this case, take me to our YouTube page that has a video for each one of these icons. You'll need to note here for version 11.5, when you go down to the play button, there's a lot of options. Speech options here, there's a ton, which is great. If you've got a student who, the last name is hard and it's not pronouncing right, you can put the last name in here. So every time that they use Read and Write 11 then and it comes across their last name, it'll say it correctly. You've got some auto reading options. So every time that a letter is put in or every time that a word, you put a space there after a word, it's going to read that word for you. Or every time that you put punctuation, it's going to read the whole sentence for you there. In terms of highlighting, if you have a student who's visually impaired, we have built in some things, and most of them are going to be in 11.5 if they're anywhere, that will help students who might be visually impaired. Again, our main focus is learning disabilities, but over the years we've had some great suggestions. We've been able to develop some things in. Here in this case, every time I read now, if I have it chosen to read in the text reader, I can choose the font size, I can make it really big, I can change the highlighting colors, all that. I can change the font. So if I need it blown up every time it reads, I can do that here. So again, that's in the speech options there, the drop down next to that play button. I can also change my voices here, change the pitch, the speed, a word pause. If a student needs to have a little bit of time in between each word, you can put a word pause in there as well. So I tend to show this tool or this option setting more just because it's one of the more popular reasons people use version 11 is there's a lot more flexibility there. Along with all the tools here. There's also a Daisy reader. So if you have a Daisy book, you can open it up with our Daisy reader and it can read it that way, which is nice. You see here that there are more tools that aren't showing up, so I've got to do a drop down here. Also in version 11, this little purple puzzle piece, when I click on it, it's going to give me different looks of tools. In other words, combinations, in this case, for studying. So these are my study tools. You remember that we did those highlighters on version 12. Same ones are here. There's also a word cloud. There is that ability to put a voice note in as well. If I choose it again, this is basically all the features. Now there's all kinds of stuff here. We don't have time to go through all of them today. There is a talking calculator, which can be really helpful, but you'll see that the rest of the tools are in a drop down here. So again, the reason we kept 11.5 is because it has all these tools. The reason we have version 12 is because most people don't need all of these tools. But if you do, they're here. Last thing to show here on version 11 is right next to this purple puzzle piece, there's a drop down. And here there are a quick reference card, which is great. A lot of people like to go here, print this out, keep it somewhere in the lab, or if they're showing it to a student, they can basically print this out for a student. Not sure why it's not coming up here, but basically it tells you this icon does this icon does that. Here it is. So a lot of folks will print this out. Again, that is right next to that purple puzzle piece, that drop down. All the video tours are here. You could do this. You could just go to our YouTube webpage as well and just look up 11.5, and there's an entire list of those videos there. And you can change what the current toolbar looks like. You can change the background color of it. There's some nice settings there. And then the last thing to point out here, general options. So general options. This is where the depth of 11.5 is that version 12 does not really have. If I want to change what's up here, if I want to change and take spelling off of here, I can change that. Now that capability is found in version 12 as well, the ability to take away tools and that sort of thing. However, down here, if I want, I can make smaller icons. I can make large icons with text. In this case, I don't need to hover over it to see what it is. It just says it right below it. Then one thing to point out here, hotkeys. So if you have a student who is using JAWS or another screen reading program, you can design up to 12 different keystroke combinations to engage and use different tools in the toolbar. So you can create it down here. I'm going to do, control plus P is going to be, maybe that'll be my screenshot reader. So I can do that. I can save that basically. I've already got 12 here, but this is a nice way for those users that they want to use Read and Write in the same way that they use JAWS or another screen reader. They can make those keystroke combinations the same, which is really nice. A little hidden fact, for some places when you're doing the exams, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, and you've got your exam up and you open up Read and Write first, you can set it here so that as I've shown you, I can do I thought I had the screenshot reader here to do speech. If I set it up so the screenshot reader, it's set up. Then when I open up, let's say the AccuPlace or something else, Read and Write can still run in the background. I don't need to have the toolbar up if I can just use the keystroke combination to bring up those crosshairs of that screenshot reader. So let's say I set it for Control S or Control P, whatever it is, that would bring up the screenshot reader. That's another way that you can make that test accessible without actually having to have the toolbar pop up. It's just running in the background. Okay. So someone's asking here, is there a sentence pause? We do have a pause button that's on there. So when you are reading text there, next to that stop button and the play button, you'll see that there's a pause button. Let me bring that back up here. Oh, it doesn't want to come up. Now I've got too many things running. There we go. I think I might be the only person crazy enough in our company to try doing a webinar like this. It's got so many things open, doing so many different iterations. So this is version 12 again, and you'll notice here that there is, There should be here. So there's a pause button there. Version 12, I do want to show also, when I did these show more settings, I do want to show that you can do a couple things here. Notice as I scroll down here, I got the toolbar colors and those sorts of things, which is great. And the button size, I can change that as well. But I can also, for me, let's say I don't need that check it feature, I can click on that and now it's gone. I don't want the prediction, I can uncheck that, so on and so forth, which is really nice. So I can customize the toolbar, so if I only need 4 or 5 different things, I can get rid of everything else. Another thing that we've recently added is those same keyboard shortcuts that we had that I just showed you in 11.5, we now have those here for version 12, which is great. Again, if you're in a testing situation and you want to use one of the tools here, you can do that. So we get the PDF reader will come up, the scan text will come up, and there's your keystroke combinations there on the right. And I want to show that to you for a reason. In a little bit when we come back to testing, I'll come back to this area to show you what we can do with that testing. For now though, what I want to do is I'm going to change gears, and I've shown you version 12, I've shown you 11.5. What I'm going to do now is for any school out there that is a Google campus, I'm going to show you this Read and Write for Google program, which is really exciting. It has really changed what we're able to do, particularly for students who are using Google. A lot of them are in the K-12 setting, but more and more colleges are moving over or adding Google to their Microsoft offerings as they're finding Google is doing more and more with security to be on top of that. So when I am in my Chrome browser here, any PDF that I come across, it will open up and it will use the PDF reader that's installed. So basically, here is that one of the same documents I showed you earlier. What it's doing is when it opens up here, like I said, I got a lot of stuff going on my computer right now. Here, basically, it's opening up in our PDF reader. This is through Read and Write for Google Chrome. Because I have it installed here, you can see it up here, it's an extension. So when I open up a PDF, I set it to default to use my PDF reader, my text help PDF reader, not anything else, or different text readers, or I should say PDF readers. So here I scroll down my PDF, it's accessible. So for me, it's really simple to use the tools. I can highlight them. I can choose play if I want to read those aloud.
This chapter, we describe the composition and functions of this life.
So it's reading it directly from there, right from my browser. A lot of those other tools that I showed you before, if I don't know what something is, I can choose it. I can use my picture dictionary. I can use my talking dictionary. For some reason, it's not doing that. Let's try another one here. So right inside of this PDF viewer, I've got these supports, which is really great. A lot of students in the colleges, they'll use those highlighting. So as I showed before, I can highlight, let's say for me, pink has something to do with organs, and let's say blood cells is going to be blue, and I go over here and that's going to be green. And the difference here is that when I highlight these and then I choose to collect the highlights, it's not going to open a Word doc, it's going to open a Google Doc. The nice thing here is it automatically saves this Google Doc into my Google Drive. It takes all those highlights, puts them by color, and makes it into a Google Doc. Really, really simple. And then because of the collaborative nature of Google, I can share this out with other students in my group. I can share it with my teacher, whatever else I need to. So some great tools there in that PDF environment. Also, if you are a Google school and you are used to using maybe Kurzweil where you could type over something, we've added that capability in. So let's say that this is a PDF version of a test and I need to respond on it. I can choose the typewriter and I can respond anywhere in the document. I can also use word prediction to do that. I can also use our dictation tool to do that, and I can leave that right there. And then anyone else who's using the Read and Write PDF viewer will be able to see these comments. It's kind of like an overlay system. Last thing to point out here, if you're familiar with the Google world, in Google Docs, you can leave comments. So if I was collaborating with someone, I can say, hey, when it comes to this, hey, John, blah, 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 and I can leave a comment in the document. Well, what we've built into the Google platform now is the same thing. If I want to leave a comment for somebody else, I can do that same thing here. Now we're actually turning this PDF into a collaborative PDF, which is just awesome. So I can use the prediction again. I can put in a voice note. So I can actually add a voice file into this PDF, which is great. I can also put images. I can also attach a link if I want to as well. So we've really made this PDF more than just accessible. We've made it interactive. So that is the PDF tool within Read and Write for Google Chrome. Some of the other great things that it gives you access to is, let's say you're on a web page. In this case, here I am. I choose the little purple puzzle piece up here, and it's going to float in this floating version of Read and Write. There's my 20 tools basically. And same thing, I can read it aloud. If I need to have clarification through a visual, I can have that up. I can keep my picture dictionary up if I need to. My talking dictionary, it'll read that aloud as well.
Now, regular weather conditions. The climate is cold and rainy.
So I've got all those tools here, which is really great. My screenshot reader over here, this sea level pressure composite, that is an image. So if I wanted to, I can use the screenshot reader. I just pull a box around that image. Abby's going to scan it and we're going to read it.
Sea level pressure composite mean, MB, October 1-30, 2010.
So that's great. And then lastly, for those students that might come across pages like this that are really busy, maybe they have ADHD, maybe they've got some attention issues, organizational challenges, executive functioning. Over here, there is this simplify page. What this is going to do when I choose it, it's going to take the text of that page and open up a new tab with just the text. So all the visuals are gone. Now it's just the text that I'm dealing with here. And if I want, I can change the contrast to maybe black on white. Maybe again, I used the term before, scotopic sensitivity syndrome, that background, that white is really blinding for them. Well, I can change that here in the contrast because I've made a simpler page with the simplify page button here. You'll also notice screen masking is on here as well. So if I am on a page and I want to be able to make it easier for me to read, now I basically kind of use this kind of blue sheen across the top. I can change the settings here as well if I want, or I can just turn it off. And then lastly, inside of Google Docs, when I'm in a Google Doc, it basically, this little toolbar, when I choose the purple puzzle piece, will show up here. And then I've got all those same tools, text-to-speech, right from the PDF, or right from the Google Doc. I've got the ability to dictate. I have to say the dictation here is way better than on the Windows product. So when I click on this, I can just start speaking and it's going to transcribe what I'm saying as I'm saying it. Really great tool there. If I have somebody who doesn't speak English but speaks another language, there are about 100 different languages here that you can use and it will dictate. And then I did show you before, there's those word prediction tools, there's the check it tool that's in there. Same thing, if I want to leave a voice note, I can do that here as well. So a voice comment. And all the tools, again, they're supported through the browser. It's not on my machine here, it's coming through the browser. So IT departments love this because it is very, very simple to deploy. It's just kicked out to the browser. When students log in with their university ID, they've got it right there if they want it. It'll also work if you've got professors that are using forms. It'll work there. The nice piece here is you can use that speech to text in forms, which is great. So if I wanted to respond here, what were the name of the dogs? I can do that. The dogs were Little Ann and Big Dan. And I use that right there. I can also use word prediction there, so it makes these forms way more accessible. If you happen to be a college that's doing both Google and Microsoft, here I've got a Microsoft Office document. This is a Word document. You can still use Read and Write for Google Chrome, all these tools to access, in this case, that Word document online. So I can use the play, I can use the dictation, I can use all those tools directly here in a Word online document. Now I'm using Chrome again. If I happen to be one of the few colleges that's actually pushing out Microsoft Edge, we have that version for Microsoft Edge. It hangs down the exact same way and it works right inside of Office Online documents. A few more things to show. I want to step back here, make sure that I show. Here it is. So I mentioned before EPUBs. So we do have an EPUB reader here. I'll go ahead and bring that up. So I had an EPUB, in this case, in my Google Drive. I just double-clicked on it, opened it up, and here we have an EPUB reader. I can put in here bookmarks. I can go to different chapters here. So here I'm going to go to chapter 1. And you see the layout here is just very different, which is one of the benefits of the EPUBs, basically. I can put bookmarks in if I'd like to. There's a whole lot of tools that are in here as well. Obviously, text-to-speech, those highlighting tools, the ability to extract words out and have them defined. I can put in an annotation note if I want. There's another bookmark I can toggle through. I can change the font options, and then I've got a lot more options here in terms of page color, the voice options, that sort of thing, all right here in this nice little tool for EPUBs. So again, only available with the Google Chrome product right now, but really, really great for those EPUB students. As I mentioned before, our YouTube page, you can go there and look for playlists. In this case, I can learn all about the Read and Write for Google Chrome options here by looking at these videos. But I can also go here and look for version 11, version 12, the Mac version. There are hundreds and hundreds of videos, and most of them are built in like playlists, so it makes it really easy to find them and consume them. There are some helpful things on our website. In this case here, where do I use these tools in the standard writing process? This is great for the writing centers. A lot of them like to print this out and keep it there. When you're pre-writing, these are the tools over here to help you with brainstorming, gathering details, background search. When you're drafting, here are the tools you should use. So it helps students use the tools at the right time during the writing process. I just looked over at the questions. I just see someone just said our school is not a good school. I don't know what that means. I'm sorry. I'm reading from the bottom up. Yes, so Maureen's asking, does the EPUB need to be accessed from Google Drive? Yes, you would need to go into Google Drive and have it basically there. So I've got my EPUB somewhere in there. I can find that here. I'm searching. My computer is really, really slow, but there it is. So I've got some EPUB files here, Call the Wild, which is one here. When I open that up through Google Drive, that's when it opens up into this EPUB. So last couple of things I want to point out here. We have, I don't think I have it up here. If you go to training.texthelp.com, and I'm going to mention this when I go back to the PowerPoint in a moment. Training.texthelp.com, you'll see down here, you can learn more about the depth of 11.5 by taking this online course. It's free, might take an hour or two to do it, but it'll walk you through a lot of the depth of 11.5 so you're familiar with it. In terms of the Google product, you can do the same thing here. So if you want to learn more about Read and Write for Google, you can take that class here. And then for Equatio, that math accessibility program that we showed a couple weeks ago, you can learn all of that right here as well. So those courses are free. It's a great way to get accustomed to the tools, depending on which platform you're looking at. So I've got some questions here, and I can tell some of them are redundant of the ones that I had come in ahead of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back here, and I know that was a ton of information, but hopefully you were able to get some information that was helpful to you, some clarification on things. In terms of the licensing for Read and Write, as I mentioned, it's an annual cost. So one person, $145 a year. If your campus is between 1 and 10,000 students, it's basically $3,600. 10 and 20,000, it's $6,500, and then anything over 20,000 students is $81.95 per year. And again, this covers all the platforms. So if you're a Google school, you can use the Google version, and you can also install either 11 or 12 on those students' desktops if they need deeper tools more locally, or they need accessibility outside of Google with something on their desktop, or maybe they're a Mac user and they want to have that installed. You can use our Mac version, which works really well on the desktop of a Mac. So I want to get to some of the questions that you all included with your registration. How can faculty create accessible documents? I mentioned it before, those scanning tools that are on the desktop are really great for that. You can also, as I said, set your printers or copiers to OCR as a default. They're not always done that way, and that can be a really simple thing systemically that you can change, or that departments can change so that the documents they're putting out there are going to be more accessible. Implementation hurdles. Best thing to say is our support.texthelp.com site. You can look for anything there. Our guys keep that updated daily. So anything that comes in, they put it in there. So if you're coming across an issue with something particular, look there. If it's not there, you'll find that you can contact our tech guys in our Boston offices there, and they're very, very helpful. If they're not available for a call, they'll call you back, or they can do email. They can also webinar into your machine and see exactly what's going wrong. I have to say there is very few things that those guys have not seen. Some of them have been with us for a long time, so it's really great if you need that assistance there. Campus rollout might be my favorite question that came in because I get to tell a story. It's about a purple puzzle piece, and also there is a video that will really help you out at text.help and then / capital H, capital E, capital R rollout. Well, I'll explain what these things are. The purple puzzle piece story. So here in my state of Minnesota, St. Mary's University, they purchased Read&Write for Google about 3 or 4 years ago. And what they did, you can see there's a picture here of a purple spray paint can. And the gal who did this, she used to be an elementary teacher, and you'll see why here. She went to a dollar store, she bought a bunch of really cheap puzzles, and she spray painted all of them purple. Then she left these puzzle pieces all over campus, in lounges, in cafes, in classrooms, in bathrooms, everywhere. So everybody for a couple of weeks was like, what are all these purple puzzle pieces? There's something weird happening on campus. About 3 weeks into the school year then, after everybody was talking about it, she sent an email out to all faculty and all students, and in the subject line was purple puzzle piece, and everybody opened it up. And when they opened it up, she had created some great visuals here to say, the purple puzzle piece stands for this thing called Read&Write, and it offers these tools. And then she also kind of had some helpful guides to say, well, this is the tool that does this is what does that, just to help students get started with it. It is, I mean, like my favorite implementation story. It brought so much awareness to this. If you want more information about it, I checked with Karen today. She's the gal that did it. She's actually going to do it probably again this coming year because she said it's been a few years, and most of those students that are coming in next year didn't have that. So she's going to do it again. Here's her email address, khemker@smumn.edu. She's more than happy to share what she did as well as those documents that help people understand what Read&Write was. She'd be happy to share those with you there. The second story is North Dakota State University. That link that I gave you that I'll show you again goes to a webinar I did with them a few years back. And what they did is they took Read&Write and they installed it, or they made it available on their download page. In other words, any software that they bought as a university license for all students, they have a place, you got to sign into it on their LMS, I think it was Blackboard at the time, and then you could download it. I've got the visual here. This is basically their Read&Write Gold page, which they're still calling Gold. That's fine. But when you go down here, you can go right to the software page and download it directly to your machine. So they weren't a Google campus. They couldn't use Google, but they have obviously students that have Macs or PCs. And when you go there, you can choose the Mac or PC download. Very, very popular way to get it out there. So if you go to that text.help / HER rollout there, you will see that video. They also go through, they did events on campus, they did trainings along with Blackboard. They actually got involved with their IT department and did some collaboration with them. So when they were teaching about Blackboard, they were also teaching about Read&Write. They made some videos across campus, some really great ideas that we covered there. Turn off auto updates. We can do that in the case where you don't want things updating at the wrong time. All you have to do is contact us again through support.texthelp.com. We can turn that off for you indefinitely. We can do whatever you want with that, but that's an internal thing, but we can do that. Okay, exam options was a popular question. If you want to learn more about the exam options that are out there, you can go to this text.help / exams with a capital E, and you'll get some information there. When it comes to the testing center, version 12, there's some great exam settings that they have there. If you want to see some specifics about version 12, there's a link down there to some resources, text.help / admin set, the A and the S are capitalized. And basically, it'll walk you through the process of going in through your settings as an administrator to choose which students you want to select for this exam mode. You can choose which tools they can access, which ones they cannot access, and then you can choose the duration. So let me show you just how to do that here. I'm going to open up version 12. And when I do, on the right-hand side, you recall that there's those that place where I can change the options. So there it is. So when I choose the settings and I go to show more settings, then here's the key. Up here, you got to put in admin settings. Oh, try this again. Admin settings. And watch when I put the S in there, boom, it's going to bring up the password. So then here, I put in my password that I've totally forgotten. And then I can select the feature. So now I can say, okay, well, for these particular students, I don't want them to have the spell check. I don't want them to have the dictation tool. I don't want them to have all these other tools here. And I'm going to do this now, and then I can get started with it. So I can go here, and again, I've selected the tools that I don't want them to have. Go to next. I can choose a date range here to do that, so on and so forth. So that's a great way to put those exam settings on through, again, version 12. Let me go back and show you there's actually something else that you can do for version 11. There's something called the Teacher Toolkit. If you want to learn about that, there's a great video here that walks you through all of it. text.help/11 capital E for exam. And basically what the toolkit is, I can bring it up here. The toolkit is really kind of an admin tool where you can change the feature sets for particular students or for particular machines. I believe you can do that. So you've got a lab in there. You can make it so only these 3 or 4 different options, maybe it's just text-to-speech and screen masking, are available on all these computers, or you can change it for actual student accounts if you've got those set up through version 11.5. So, and this is more like kind of an LDAP tool where you can import users, activity logs, that sort of thing. But I'd say by and large, this is mostly used for exams these days. So the Text Help Toolkit, the Teacher Toolkit, I should say, you have to install it separately from our Essentials site. And again, there's a great video that overviews that at text.help/11 exam with a capital E. Okay, last few questions here. The deeper tools of 11.5, like I said, you can go to that training.texthelp.com, or you can go to our YouTube page and just watch some videos there on how to use it. Keep in mind 11.5, there is that drop down that'll show you the video tour at the very bottom for that particular tool. Compatibility with other software. I'd say the best thing is you can use Read and Write any iteration for 30 days as a trial. Test it out with some of these other ones. We have been working more on accessibility. We recently just made it more compatible with JAWS, which was a really big thing for us to do. Glad we could do it, but we know that there's more to be done. So let us know if there's something particular that's not working out between Read and Write and something else you have installed, and we're happy to get working on that. A challenging one here. Someone said, can you compare Read and Write to other products, which I assume basically when you're looking at a product like this in higher ed, it's mainly that we're looking at us versus Kurzweil. I'll give you an example. I mean, the whole reason that we're doing this is because Susan from the University of Colorado there said, you know, I need to look at Read and Write Gold again. Well, it turns out 4 years ago, she, along with I think a lot of other universities, signed up for 3 or 4 year contracts with Kurzweil, and theirs is running out, and they have decided they are moving to Read and Write, not only because it's just simpler in a lot of ways, but also they are a Google campus. But according to Susan, what she likes about it is you don't have to scan. It's easy, a lot easier in a lot of ways. She said that there were some difficulties, and I can't speak to this directly, but I think with the cloud, with files that were in the cloud, I think, with Kurzweil that weren't accessible for a certain number of days, it was really, really bad for our students. For us, we don't store anything. We just add accessibility to what you're already storing in Google or OneDrive or whatever else. So I'd have to say that a lot of folks that are jumping from Kurzweil to us are doing it because it's just easier, and if they're a Google school, it's really a no-brainer. That's about as far as I'll go with that because I'm not really an expert on Kurzweil at all. Does it work with Brightspace or LMSs? Oftentimes it does, especially that sometimes you can use the Windows version 11.5 or 12. Sometimes that read and write toolbar when you're using an LMS with the Google one, it'll pop right in there, it'll work. Sometimes it doesn't. It depends on a lot of different things that we don't always have control over. But what I can tell you is if it comes to just reading text aloud, that screenshot reader, more often than not, I mean, I don't know of an instance where it won't work. It'll work beautifully to read the text aloud. Doesn't matter what you're in because it's just going to take a picture of what's on your screen anyway. Is it compatible with Linux OS? Simply, no. We weren't able to kind of keep that up. So 11.5, 12 will not work with Linux. And then some folks wanted to know, well, what are some things coming down the pike for version 12? I can tell you with version 12, recently we've added more individual user feature control. So we recently added that ability for a user to control what tools are on their toolbar. That Check It tool is a newer tool as of 2018. Just this past week, we added more compatibility with JAWS, as I mentioned. What is in development in the future? Spanish localization. So if you've got a Spanish-speaking student, the whole program is going to be in Spanish. Deeper accessibility, we're working on that as well. We've gotten some great feedback from people on what we can do to make it more accessible for people who might have more than just learning disabilities. And then we're working on some ways to make it easier for that situation where you're downloading it maybe from your school site onto your computer to make it easier for that process, not only downloading it, but also the sign-in process. So we're working on those things as well. Now this is again particular to version 12 on the PC. And I believe on the Mac we're doing that easier install as well. Last thing, and I showed this at the Equatio webinar, and I want to make sure I make this point clear because this has helped a lot of colleges come up with the funding for Read and Write. I mentioned all these different areas that it benefits. Retention, though, is the one that pretty much every campus, doesn't matter where you are, there's a retention effort going on. It's a really big deal. Obviously, you need to keep the students there to keep things going. Recently here in my state of Minnesota, the University of St. Thomas was one of those ones. They had used Kurzweil for 3 years, 4 years, whatever else. Their Kurzweil licensing is up and they are converting over to Read and Write. They are not a Google campus. They just find it a lot easier to use. But in doing that, we looked at a couple weeks ago their enrollment. Their enrollment here, 6,200 students. They have about 1,500 first-year students, which means their dropout rate is about, their dropout rate is about 12%, which is great. I mean, that's a great percentage, but still, that's 186 students that don't come back for their sophomore year, and they're paying $40,000 a year. So they've got $7.5 million every year just from freshmen not coming back that they're losing. When they looked at the Read and Write cost, it's $3,600. If you can convince your university that you can keep one of those students from dropping out by using Read and Write, you have paid for it 100 times because that tuition is not just $40,000 that year, it's for the next 4 years. So you're looking at a difference of $160,000 and minimal cost to keep that there for 4 years with Read and Write. So there is a way to look at the retention efforts and say, how can we afford to not do this as a university when we know this program is going to help so many students in many ways and not have to leave? If you like what I'm showing here, you can find that information, particularly the retention percentages and that sort of thing, at the NCES, National Center for Education Statistics site. You can Google it, you can put your university in there, find out all kinds of information. It's about 2 to 3 years old, but it's usually pretty accurate, which is nice to see. So I've got some questions over here. I know we've gone over an hour. I'm sure some people had to jump off, but we will get the recording out to people. I think I did cover the testing there. Canvas integration, that was really for Maureen. The Canvas integration is with our Equatio program. So if you want to see that more, let us know. We can walk you through that. You can go back to that webinar to see how that's done. But there's also some videos out there. If you just Google Equatio Canvas, it'll take you right to John McGowan, our product manager. He does an overview of what it looks like to have Equatio inside of Canvas. Really simple. And I apologize if I don't get to some of these other questions or if I haven't gotten to it. Hopefully I've answered a lot of them by now. To kind of wrap things up here, we are happy to help you with webinars, meetings. There are a lot of AHEAD meetings, local chapters, state chapters coming up in the spring here. We're already on the docket for some of them, but if you want us to come and present on either Read&Write or Equatio or both, let us know. There's a good chance we can make it out there or send somebody out there to do it. If you want to just have a discussion, we're happy to do that. If you want to quote, we're happy to do that. At this point of year, we know that some places, they did not renew their Kurzweil and they need something to last from here to the end of the school year. We can likely put something in place for that as well. And as I mentioned before, there's 30-day trials for all of our products, all the iterations of Read&Write here. And then again, we can help you with that. You can use some videos. I will say there are some people I know that are on here that are already customers. If you don't know about it, I would strongly advise considering doing a webinar with us, and that's to have our certified trainer basically walk you through all the ins and outs more in more depth than I'm doing today necessarily. So the costs are right there. They're very popular. It's a great way to start off the school year in the fall to understand what you have access to, how you can help your students. Probably better to do it in the summer to be able to plan with that. So just letting you know that that's available. If you have any questions on it, on those, let us know. My email address, paul.brown@texthelp.com. Feel free to email me. In the next couple of days, though, we will reach back out to you. You will get a recording, a link to a recording of this webinar in case you want to watch it again, or if you've got some other folks that you want to see different iterations or understand what they can do with Read&Write, by all means, forward it to them as well. We'll also give you a link to these slides that I have used today. And with that, thanks everyone for joining us. You'll hear from us soon, and have a great day.